Hey, aloha, love tribe. Welcome to Bitcoin for Peace. I have somebody here who I got to see speak in person down in El Salvador talking about Bitcoin and psychedelics. He is a medical doctor, a psychonaut, an MMA fighter, an author. He's into Bitcoin tech, psychedelics, and he's a wonderful content creator, the author of Abundance Through Scarcity. And he's got a killer YouTube channel that so many people love and they learn about Bitcoin from. Ioni Appelberg. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That sounds like a cool person. I want to meet him.
Dude, me too. High five to that guy. Yeah, what a treat. It was so cool to get to meet you at the speakers dinner and then watch you give your beautiful talk. I felt super like, wow, I'm so happy to know you. And I've consumed your content and I know a lot of people have been impacted by it. So how did you get from a medical doctor to psychonaut to Bitcoin creator and educator?
I guess I'm a restless soul.
High five to that, my friend.
I remember when we first met at the speakers dinner in El Salvador. It was a very beautiful night. I had a great
It
time, great
was.
vibe at that dinner party. And I knew who you were, and but you didn't know me by my face. You
I didn't
knew
know
me
your
by
face. Yeah.
no, you didn't know my face.
But I knew
So that
your
was great.
name.
And I understood that you were leaving the party, and I just wanted to say hello before you left. And so I just introduced myself, and you gave me this incredibly warm and present. Um, yeah, you were just awesome, and so I was, and we had a great conversation after that. I was, yeah, that made my night.
Aw. Yeah, me too. I was so glad. I mean, I feel isn't it amazing like the relationships or the strands of connections that we have with each other through Bitcoin, even though we haven't all met, but we're like, wow, I really love your work, or I know of you, or you're somebody I just I want to check out. And then all of a sudden we get to meet each other in skin
Yes,
suits, like, whoa. Um,
and that's
what's
very.
been
We're in a very unique uh, point in time, because it's not always going to be like this. It's not always going to be like these people who go to conferences and people get to know them. There's sort of like a notoriety thing going on for some people, and we're connected with these, like, in a network in a way, and we get to do our networking and meet the same kind of people. Like, the community is still small enough for it to feel special, but it's not always going to be like that. So we should really cherish all these conferences that we get to go to, and have the newcomers and see the old timers, until it all dilutes into just being hyper Bitcoinized.
well, yeah, I guess you think about like when the internet was first coming on and all the tech people were coming together, probably,
Right,
right? I mean, I
right.
wasn't
Yes.
involved in that scene at that point, but it's like so exciting in the beginning, like it's just going to change the world, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's just ubiquitous. Everybody's using the
Right.
internet. No big deal. You're not having like, we're having an internet conference. No, you're not. Like yeah. So I'm hoping that's how Bitcoin is going to evolve. I mean, how long have you been a Bitcoiner? And how long have you been a Bitcoiner and why did you start making content?
I'm class of 2015, 2016.
Okay.
So I started reading. I read the Bitcoin white paper in 2015, but so that was my first touch point.
Hmm.
But I still consider myself more like class of 2016, because that is when I began actually making an effort to understand Bitcoin,
Hmm.
and when I got my first sats.
Okay.
I fell down the rabbit hole thanks to Andreas, his YouTube channel. And the reason I started making content was because it was a great way for me it was a good medium to learn.
Yeah.
So I started reading and consuming other people's content, and I summarized it for myself, and I put it in my own words, and I repackaged it in a way that made sense to me. So I made content for me, and rather than just having a bunch of notes everywhere that I would never go back to, I decided to start making videos, because I've always made videos. I have this I have a video diary that I've had since 2009, 2009, I think,
Wow.
where I've experimented with different formats over the years. Like, um, when I first started, I did like, I don't remember how I first started. I just filmed a few events here and there, I guess. Then for quite a long time, I did 1 second a day because I saw a TED talk on that. Somebody did that and inspired me, so I did 1 second every day.
Mm-hmm.
Then I moved on to doing monthly summaries, like a monthly episode of my life. And what the diary aims to do is, now I'm rarely in it myself, so I just show the world from my perspective, leaving behind my autobiography. This is the life from Ioni's perspective. This is what I saw. These are the people that were important to me. These are the things that I found interesting. And so I just do that. It's a creative hobby I have, because I have had to learn a lot about editing, cutting, color correction, and all that, and just making videos. And I enjoyed that a lot. So it came kind of natural to me to make the Bitcoin content also in video format. And I wanted to learn how to do some animations, so I learned that. And I wanted
Cool.
to learn how YouTube works, so I learned that. And yeah, that's the story.
And what have you discovered about, obviously creating, there's so much Bitcoin content out there, right? We've got our podcasts, our books, our videos, our articles, blogs, spaces, and everything. Like, how have you found the audience for your videos? Like, who are the folks that love to consume your videos? Are they already Bitcoiners? Are they new people, or both?
Yeah, I would say there's a mix. Like, a lot of newcomers, like a lot of people use my channel to orange pill their friends.
Cool.
Which is a good tool. And now you have that. So if you're listening, please go ahead and use my channel for that. That is what it has evolved into. I never really had an audience in mind when except apart from myself, when I made these videos.
Yeah.
So there's the most recent one.
Yeah. And so I wanted to share for people. So this to me is a superpower, but obviously this is Bitcoin for Peace podcast. Um, can you talk about this statement that you made here? If I'll say it out loud, why don't you read it out loud so that if people are
Sure.
just listening and not watching, they can hear it.
Yeah. So this is an animation. It's a collaboration between me, Knut Svanholm, and Guy Swan.
Mm-hmm.
The video is called Oppenheimer versus Nakamoto. And here's a frame towards the end where one of my little animated buddies says, if world peace is the goal, the worst thing a person can do is work for a government. Governments are responsible for the worst crimes against humanity that have ever been committed. It's a big and bold statement. And
It is.
what this means is that if it weren't for government, we wouldn't have had world wars. If it weren't for government, we wouldn't have had mass starvation. So it's pretty straightforward what it means. It just means that it means what it says, that governments are responsible for the worst crimes against humanity. And all we have to do to realize that this is true is to look at history. There are plenty of examples from history to support this statement.
And what is, if any, are alternatives to having governments?
No, I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not the final solution to how we organize ourselves as human beings.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next stage is, but it's not the final stage. So as human beings, we have found very different ways to organize ourselves across history.
Mm-hmm.
So we are no longer, for example, in a feudal society where we have kings and queens and peasants. That used to be the way that we organized ourselves as a society.
Mm-hmm.
The kings and the queens were the most important people in the world, and they still exist today. but their importance have diminished. They're not that important anymore. But we
Hmm.
still have them. They're still around. They're glorified politicians, basically.
Yeah.
Here in Sweden, we have a king and a queen, and I mean, you would, if you went up to a teenager and asked the name of our king and queen, they wouldn't even know it. So
Interesting.
they're not that important anymore, but they exist, and it's going to be the same with nation states and governments going forward. I'm not saying in the coming decades, but like these societal changes, they take time, but at some point we are going to live in a society where nation states still exist, where governments still exist, but their importance is going to be radically diminished to the point that, well, they don't really matter. They exist, but they don't really matter anymore. And maybe the evolution of the nation state and the government is a network state. That might be it.
A
I'm not
network
sure.
state?
Yeah, like
Can you explain that for everybody listening?
sure. So the network state is a digital type of state where we are um, where you are not part of a nation based on geography and borders and language and currency, but rather you are belong to a network with people of similar values and attitudes, and you can be of multiple nations and you can have multiple um, languages. So we can be like, the Bitcoin network could become the first network state. So what that would mean, it would mean that we would become a sovereign state, a digital state, with the same rights as a state, a physical state. But we would exist in the digital world, in the digital realm, as a form of nation state, but not really a nation state, but rather a network state. And we would be joined by our values and our ideas rather than our borders and state currency.
And do you feel like the Bitcoin network are the people of the Bitcoin network are already sort of assembling in that way naturally because of just I find personally, and I don't know if this is the same thing, but like everyone who I meet who's a Bitcoiner, it's like we all share the same passion for freedom. We share the same passion for making the world a better place. We share the same passion for self-responsibility and connectivity and opportunity, you know? And so I wonder, are we doing this already just by default?
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that Bitcoin could become the next network state for no reason. I I'm making the same observation as you are.
Hmm.
I think that the people in the Bitcoin community are organizing a new form of society, and it's happening bottom up. It's happening naturally.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're really, I mean, I'm sure there are initiatives, but it's not really based on initiatives. It's happening anyway.
And would you equate the network state? Like, how would you compare that with the phrase circular economy?
Could you frame the question differently?
Well, I hear people talking, obviously, in the Bitcoin community and other different communities. We talk about having circular economies that are, you know, whether it's in El Salvador at Bitcoin Beach, for example, right? Or other small places where people, it's not just because of the currency or the money that we're using, but it's also because we want to go build this better world. So it seems like a network state might be a few more layers of ingredients than just a circular economy. Is that
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure which would come first. I think they would come simultaneously.
mhm,
As we're seeing now in El Salvador with El Zonte, for example, the
mhm.
Bitcoin Beach community, and Berlin in El Zonte up in the mountains.
Did you get to go there?
I did.
Ah,
I went
cool.
into the Bitcoin school, and and met the people there, had a tour. It was great. It was great. I'm
Nice.
actually looking to go back there and give a few lectures in that Bitcoin school.
Cool.
Yeah, when they're done. Yeah, we had a talk about that, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hoping that will come to fruition. So these kind of places, these physical places in the world, they are
Mhm.
going to emerge where we have Bitcoin, physical Bitcoin citadels. On
Yeah.
top of that, we're going to have the network layer. And I mean, I don't know where the distinction is going to be between these. I mean, it's going to be a new kind of thing. It's hard to put your finger on exactly what this will mean and what it will be, because we don't know yet what they are. We don't have any precedent to anything to compare it to.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating thinking about we don't have like a historical thing that we can say, yeah, this is how it worked for these other societies or civilizations.
Yeah.
And
It's the
I
same
know,
thing with Bitcoin. We are dressing up Bitcoin in all kinds of clothes and metaphors to understand what it is.
yeah,
It is not as simple as a new kind of digital money.
mm-mm,
It's an entirely new kind of economic operating system that has never existed before, with radically different properties that affect society and people and the economy in ways that we can sort of foresee, but we can only speculate about them. And I often argue that Bitcoin is an economic psychedelic. It's a psychedelic for the human brain because it has a psychedelic impact on us.
yeah,
And it also has a psychedelic impact on the economy in the sense that it, like a psychedelic, exposes the flaws of the current operating system, whether that's
mhm,
human brain or the economy. It exposes the flaws. It gives you a list and saying, here are the things that are wrong with this current system, whether that is the algorithms that you have in your brain
mhm,
or how the fiat system works. It lays bare the flaws. And then it introduces plasticity into the brain and into the economy,
mhm.
giving us the opportunity to actually change our thought patterns, our behavioral repertoire, as well as how the economy works.
And I want to, I love that we're getting into this part right now. And I will come back to this. How did you get involved in psychedelics? Like, what's your background in psychedelics?
Oh, I was one of those kids who was very much against any kind of substances because I didn't understand what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And I had not tried any form of substance before I was 31. I had not had, besides caffeine in green tea, basically. I'd never had nicotine, never had alcohol, never had benzodiazepines, so opioids, or cannabis, or any form of psychedelic.
Until you were 31 years old.
Yeah, yeah. When I was
Okay, this is
31,
fascinating. Oh
when I was
shit.
31, I smoked cannabis for the first time, and that was my first encounter with any kind of mind-altering substance.
And why did you choose to do that at 31?
I had a friend who introduced me, and I was curious about substances because I had started reading about psychedelics and cannabis, and I had watched a few YouTube videos, and I wanted to explore what these things were.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that at that age, I am past the age where my brain can be negatively affected by them, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that it is already set.
Yeah. And so what about, okay, so 31, you try cannabis. When did
Yeah.
you have your first psychedelic and what was it?
My first psychedelic, that was maybe when I was, what was this, maybe 34 or 35, so about 4 years ago now,
Okay.
I think. Yeah. It was, I had an LSD trip with one of the closest people in my life, and we had he introduced me, and it was a beautiful summer day, and we went out in nature and just had a very long walk in nature. I think it was 75 or 100 micrograms I had, so a medium dose, definitely enough to be very affected by it, but not an heroic dose by any stretch of the imagination. But we had a natural experience in nature. It was fantastic, and from that, I fell in love with what it was, what it did to me, and how it helped me reconnect with nature
Mm.
and to reconnect with myself and with other people and with the cosmos and everything. I found back to something that was missing in me, and that served as a portal for further exploration.
What did you find that was missing? Did you ever, so two questions. So did you feel something intuitively, like an itch inside of like, is this all there is? Is there something going on? And then if so, how did, doing the LSD, you know, um,
So
address that?
I'm very grateful for having an inquisitive mind. I feel very blessed for that. And but that also comes with consequences. Like I've always been, I've never been a particularly sad person, but I'm, I'm, I've been alone a lot in my life. I felt lonely quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that the reason that I feel alone is because I lack connection. And in the Western world, a lot of people feel like this. I am not alone.
You are not alone.
A lot of people have this emptiness inside, this hole in their chest that they try to fill with power, with status, with money, with partners, with alcohol,
Yep.
with the ambition, with the education, with all kinds of things. But you cannot fill that hole
You
because
can't.
what that hole, it stems from lack of connection. And when I say lack of connection, a lot of Westerners don't even know what that word means because they don't have it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you know when you have it. It's the same thing with love. When you have love, you know it's love.
Yeah.
It's the same with connection. When you have connection with yourself, with another person, with nature, with the cosmos, you know you have it.
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly powerful and very human sensation. And it's part of what it means to be human, to have deep connection with yourself, with other human beings, with nature. Like when I find it so weird, like when people say, "Oh, you like nature, you go on hikes and stuff." Like, no, I don't like nature. I am nature.
Exactly.
Like, I I am this now living in this artificial society that has created like a break between what I am and and the cosmos and other people and myself. There's just this like it has created a disease. Like the shamans in South America, they perfectly understand. They look at us and they see a disease. They see a lack of connection,
Yeah.
and a lack of connection that is severe. So when I found that, like I saw a glimpse of connection on my very first experience with LSD, and from there I had to find out what this was all about. So I ventured further, both at the academically, trying to understand what these substances are, and I delved deeper into the psychedelic community, and also I also gave myself more experiences. And what they have done for me is that they have exposed the flaws of the algorithms that I have in my brain.
Mm.
They have laid them bare so that I can see them clearly, and they have given me the plasticity to fix them. They have reintroduced connection with myself, with other people. Um, like I've been alone a lot in my life because I have lacked connection, which means two things. It means that I felt alone because I've lacked connection, but it also means that I've been alone because I haven't been able to relate to other people and maintain a relationship. So they have been incredibly healing for me. And I'm still on a path. I'm by no means complete.
Yeah.
I am cultivating a lifelong relationship with these teachers as
Yeah.
I look at them. And I'm also very careful. I'm very, very honest with myself with why I do each trip. Whether it's sometimes I do it for exploratory purposes and for entertainment, and then I'm perfectly honest with myself that I'm doing it. Sometimes I do it because I'm sad, and I'm very honest with myself when I do that. But the overarching theme with my path in the psychedelic realm is for personal development,
Yeah.
and and also to well, I have an academic interest in these substances as well, and I want to introduce them into end of life care and psychiatry. So I work as a medical doctor and as a general practitioner, and I think that means a lot of I think it means different things in different countries. What it means here in Sweden is that um, we do a lot of things here. Like I know that in different countries there are different doctors are like here in Sweden. I would say that the rock stars are probably the um, probably like maybe the surgeons, maybe I don't know. It's pretty like what would you say? It's pretty equal here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know that in the States, for example, if you're an orthopedic surgeon or a dermatologist, then you're the rock star, and it's not at all like that here.
Mm.
Here, the anesthesiologists are probably the rock stars.
Mm.
Whether and if you go to other countries, um, there are some places where the general practitioners are the rock stars, and I would say that here we I'm very lucky to be a general practitioner here in Sweden because we do a lot of surgery, we do a lot of internal medicine, we do a lot of elderly care, we do a lot of dermatology, we um, yeah, I mean, we do a lot of things here, so I'm very pleased to have chosen this field in particular.
Do the people like, do your colleagues, are they familiar with psychedelics? What's the overall kind of vibe, acceptance of psychedelics in Sweden with the medical community?
It's opening up.
It's opening up.
There
How?
are a few big studies going on here in Sweden. Unfortunately, the biggest study going on right now is by is I think he's I think he's a medical doctor, and he doesn't really understand psychedelics. Unfortunately, he wants to be able to he what he's studying is he wants to see if you can get the benefits of psychedelics without the psychedelic experience,
Mm-hmm.
which just means that he fundamentally misunderstand what they are
Yeah.
and how they work.
It's interesting. Someone, my friend was telling me about different companies he's looking at investing in, and one of them is trying to do something with mushroom extract, so
Mm,
that people can go take that, but not actually have a psychedelic journey experience. And I'm just like, does it actually? First of all, does it do anything?
mm,
And like the journey is the journey. And like what's going on cognitively, I think is important. It's not just sort of like a put a band-aid on my soul, and all of a sudden I'm healed of trauma from my childhood. It's there's something to be said about sitting in the fire of the journey, because sometimes they can be mystical and magical, sometimes they can be very terrifying, sometimes they're lonely, sometimes they can feel like I'm at one and at peace with everything, and I've got the key to the universe here, and so to strip the recipient of that experience is like saying, it's like sex, right? You're like, okay, making love and the foreplay and all the goodness is there, but if all of a sudden your whole goal of sex is just to have some kind of a chemical release, and you can just give me a quick shot and I have the same, that's not sex. You know what I mean? To me. So
Right.
it's like, I equate the journey is so important. You don't want to just bypass that and shortcut it. I don't, for me personally, as somebody who very much believes in the medicinal and fun qualities of psychedelics and the journey. So I
Sure.
think
Like,
it's cool though. It's in the conversations though. People
oh
are
yeah,
starting to
absolutely,
understand this
100%.
now.
Like, I'm very open about my interest in psychedelics and my use
Yeah.
with my colleagues, and they are curious about it and they are open to it.
Cool.
And yeah, so, and then especially the new generation of doctors are very open to the ideas of using psychedelics in for end of life care and in psychiatry.
Yeah.
And we are currently using ketamine for
Mhm.
treatment resistant depression, but ketamine is not really a psychedelic. But there is this we're right now in a very historic moment, because we right now have the first FDA approved human MDMA study.
Yeah.
So that's the first, and it's by Rick Doblin
Yep. From
from
maps.
MAPS.
Yeah.
So what he is doing is that this is the first psychedelic study on humans aimed to become a legal drug, a legal prescribable medicine.
Hmm.
And these studies cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So everybody involved absolutely wants them to go through.
Yeah.
So if MDMA actually works in therapy and doesn't have any severe side effects, we're very likely to see MDMA as a prescription drug within a decade or so. And this is huge. This is huge. However, MDMA is also not a classic psychedelic.
Right.
So the classic psychedelics are LSD, psilocybin, DMT, and mescaline, which is the peyote cactus.
Hmm.
And what makes them, what separates them from all other substances is their mechanism of action. They work by binding the serotonin 2A receptors with very high affinity. Affinity meaning stickiness or binding potential, how hard it binds to the receptor. So if we look at, for example, the classic SSRIs, the antidepressants like
Hmm.
Prozac, for example, they work uh, by blocking the reuptake of serotonin. So if you picture a synaptic cleft, so here I'm holding up for the people who are listening to my two fists, like I'm fist bumping myself, and there's the postsynaptic neuron and the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron. And the presynaptic neuron is going to release serotonin into the synaptic cleft to act on the postsynaptic neuron. And what SSRIs do is that they block the reuptake of serotonin from the synaptic cleft back into the presynaptic neuron, because there's going to be a concentration of serotonin between the two neurons, and SSRIs increase the activity of post synaptic neurons serotonin activity by increasing the concentration in the synaptic cleft by blocking the reuptake. So that's what they do. And MDMA is not directly active through the serotonin 2A receptor either, and therefore not a classic psychedelic. MDMA instead works by emptying serotonin vesicles from the presynaptic neuron into the synaptic cleft. So it's like a turbo SSRI. It's like Prozac on steroid, basically.
Mm.
But it increases the serotonergic effect to a degree that it almost becomes psychedelic.
And so obviously this is a huge healing tool for a lot of people with trauma. I know a lot of people, I mean, I've done MDMA in the past, but I never did MDMA it was more for fun. I never did like a therapeutic, let's go do a meditation and go in and do this whole process. It was more fun. So, but I think this is a good step in the right direction. Obviously, it's a synthetic. It's not just a mushroom that I can go grow in my bathroom, but what do you see like the pathway for psychedelics? Like we've got here, I live in Colorado, and they just passed like a decriminalizing mushrooms and some psychedelics. And so it's I think it comes into law next year. So it's not that it's legal necessarily, but it's decriminalized, And so, some advocates talk about, that this is not the right step, and they think that it should just be, um, because they're worried about it starting to get too much regulation on top of it. And so they're worried about the government coming in and saying the only way you can come and do these psychedelics is if you're in this registered licensed clinic and you have to be with the licensed doctor, versus here you can go to your shaman and go do a drum circle for 3 days and go do that sort of thing. And so advocates are concerned that the pharmaceutical companies and all of that are going to start trying to hijack everything and then criminalize the actual, real the OGs, which are, the shamany type people and the hippies. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a new type of shamans are emerging. I consider myself a white coat shaman.
A white coat shaman? Cool. Because you're a doctor?
Yes.
I love it.
And
Love it. A white coat shaman. I gotta write that down for the show notes here.
there are more and more of us who see the potential in using these medicines for end of life care and in treatment resistant depression, PTSD, OCD, and addiction. And I mean, the data speaks for itself. So what we have to do is get MDMA approved first. And when we get MDMA approved for medicinal use, that is going to open the door for a lot of these other compounds, these real psychedelic compounds, to be introduced into modern medicine.
Let's talk about you just mentioned
Mhm.
addiction, and I did Ibogaine in Mexico.
Okay, interesting.
And it was literally the night before COVID lockdown happened.
Okay.
So it's totally crazy. But I did Ibogaine because I was struggling with alcohol, and I was using alcohol, and I was in this like downward spiral. Things weren't going well, all of this. And I'm just like, shit, I want to quit. This sucks. And my girlfriend was just like, come down here to Mexico. There's a clinic, Ibogaine, at the end of the road. And I'm like, I thought Ibogaine was for like heroin addicts or I thought it was for opioids. I didn't think it was for alcohol. And she's just like, yeah, you can talk to this doctor and see what she says. And I'm just like, whatever, fine. It's cold and snowy. I'll come down to see you in Mexico and get out of the cold, and I went down there, with this intention of, okay, whatever I need to do, let's let it work and heal me and get all of this out. And I haven't done peyote yet, and I haven't sat with ayahuasca, but I've had DMT, and of course I've had mushrooms and LSD, but it was the most intense, hardcore, powerful journey of my life, other than giving birth to my children. It was so hardcore. And I was like, how does this work? And she's just like, nobody really understands how it works, but somehow it rewires your brain so that you don't have these cravings, and that you're not interested in your substance of choice. And I'm just like, whatever, what have I got to lose? Let's see what happens, and it was like a magic experience. I didn't have any cravings. I haven't since. It's just been this full on, like, just wiping the slate clean. And there was a lot of trauma work that I did during the journey, from some childhood trauma, sexual trauma as a teen. And it just was like, And I've done tons of therapy and tons of work knowing like this is part of the stuff that's holding me back and all these things, right? And so um cognitively, conceptually, I knew like I had this, they say your issues are in your tissues, right? If trauma is stored, sometimes it's in your tissues. And so I knew that I wanted to be free from these experiences and from this program that was running, and I couldn't do it on my own. And I gave it every shot, and literally one night of doing Ibogaine helped me. Like, I don't have like anxiety when I think about the situations, everything. It's just like, I got a full on reset. I literally got a reset in up here somehow and in my body. And I'm like, wow, if that could work for me, how could this help other people that are dealing with even more severe things like an opioid addiction or, it's so powerful. And it's just like, how can we overcome the hurdles of uh, all the bullshit regulations? It's a plant, like the iboga plant. It's a shrub in West Africa. It's not, so nature shouldn't be illegal.
Nature should not be illegal.
No.
And Paul Stamets has this, the mycologist. He says
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for all of human existence, we all share two things, which is we are born and we die.
Mhm.
And this creates two questions. First, where do we come from? And
Yeah.
second, where are we going? So these questions we all have in common. And with the psilocybin mushroom experience, you learn that you're part of this giant oneness, and it gives you context and consolation about your own mortality. It
Mhm.
shows you where you are in this path that is greater than just your human experience.
Yeah.
And that context gives you consolation for your own mortality. So I think that it's critically important that you have access to these substances at the end of your life, and I mean, who dares say that you should not be able to use these substances?
It's insane to me. Like, there's uh, a woman, she runs Psilocybin Citadel, and
Okay.
and she talks about just having sovereign consciousness,
Hmm.
and I really believe, like, because of this nanny state mindset,
Yep.
whether it's through the
Yep.
church or through the governments, whatever, and then the media is the puppeteers of their messaging. We think we're supposed to be like controlled and looked after by these bigger
Mm.
institutions and these bigger entities, and so um, I have one of my marketing teachers, actually, he's just like, everybody is out there with their umbilical cords hanging out and they're looking for their mommy or their daddy, and like, your job as a business person is to go help soothe that feeling of disconnection from
Mm.
their parent figure and help them feel at ease and safe with your product or service or whatever. And so I think about that consciousness of people out there, because it's a very traumatic experience to be separated from your mother at birth, and your life cord gets cut. And so then all of a sudden, throughout the rest of life, you're going and seeking different connections. And so for you, speaking about feeling disconnected,
I mean, all of us are disconnected
yeah,
from ourselves, from nature, and from the cosmos. And when we have this deep disconnection, that is where we seek substances for as trauma therapy, because they're very very efficient as band-aids on our wounds.
yeah, they're short
But
term. Yeah.
yes, but they don't heal the wounds
No.
that we have. They
No.
don't. And now people have ostracized these real medicines for the past 50 years. And for what? Because young men didn't want to go abroad to a distant country and kill other young people who they did not know
Right.
to resolve the disputes that old men in suits who do know each other have with each other.
Exactly.
Like Nixon, he criminalized these substances. He started the war on drugs because young men did not want to go to the Vietnam War and die for the country anymore. And that's the reason he said that this is public enemy number one,
Hmm.
LSD and
Yep.
these substances. But I mean, we have been using these substances since before we were Homo sapiens. I've made this argument before. We have been using these substances for hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years. And now for the past 50 years, we had this weird idea that we should not be using them, but using psychedelics is a very human thing. We have evolved together with these plants, and we're going to look back at this time as the Great Prohibition.
Yeah. Well, and it's a consciousness prohibition, not just because these substances, but like
Yeah.
they want to keep us numb, dumb, sick, scared, broke, angry, hungry, lonely, horny, and tired so that they can control us, right? And so that to me is the Kraken. I call it the beast, this Kraken. And so the minute you introduce psychedelics into pretty much anyone's sphere here up between these two ears, they're going to start shifting the way that they look at the world, just like as Bitcoiners. And so I think there's a lot of parallels. Like you say, it's like once you start to have the veils lifted and you start to see the truth and you start to see the misprogramming of the system here and the misprogramming of this system, you sometimes you're like, what the fuck, like, how have I been subscribing to this thing for so long, and sometimes there's a sense of outrage, there's a sense of delight, there's a sense of what's next and what else have I been misunderstanding in the world. And so that curiosity wants to keep going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of your consciousness, deeper down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, into the realm of possibility for expression and expansion and love and hope and peace. You're like, holy shit. So the system doesn't work if we all think that way at the same time. And so it's conditioning the way that we operate through, I think the narrative and the media. And so for you being a content creator and speaking truth in a creative way is so important, and we need so many people who are obviously also professionals of all these different walks of life to create content, because when we're ahead of the narrative, then we don't have to be in this sort of subjugated defensive mode, so sorry, I had to just barf that out there. But
Appreciate it.
yeah, I think it's super. So obviously, like, as Bitcoiners, we're a weird bunch, but I also equate us like kind of like burners and Burning Man people in the psychedelic community. We are psychonauts. We're, possibilitarians, we're looking, because we see it, we feel that itch of like, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Something's missing and something's not connecting,
Yep.
I
I mean,
think,
we need psychedelics
yeah.
for so many reasons as a species. We need them as teachers to maintain. As you said, when we're severed from our mothers at birth, we we get to experience the first lack of connection, the first
Mhm.
disconnection,
Yeah.
and I think that could to seek love, to seek connection, because it's so important to us as a species. So when we don't have it, we become sick.
Hmm.
When we don't have love and connection, we become sick. And when we don't have connection, we become depressed.
Hmm.
We develop anxiety. We develop addictions, PTSD, and all kinds of illnesses. But these,
Anger, frustration, things
yeah,
that
sure.
are
I mean, these
hostile.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, and these can be symptoms of those conditions, and they obviously belong to the normal spectrum of emotions, but they can also become um, um, part of the pathological spectrum of emotions as well. A very, very uh, high degrees of anger can definitely become detrimental to the point that they would be considered an illness. So, but when we have connection, we are sort of immune to these conditions, because what these conditions are, they're not different conditions. They're just symptoms of the same kind of brain, which is a brain that is rigid. It is stuck. It has its harmful algorithms, but we can treat these harmful algorithms by introducing some entropy into the brain with psychedelics. And we can we can give people connection. We can show them connection so that they know what they're looking for in the world. So they're very efficient teachers in that way. And when we have connection, we don't need substances as band-aids anymore.
Yeah.
So, and for that reason, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection.
It's connection. Exactly. Well, and I think about, oh God, what is it called? I think it was like the rat town, mouse
Rat
town,
Park.
rat park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
So
don't you say, you probably can explain it better than I can.
sure. Yeah. So the Rat Park is a fascinating experiment. Rat Park was conducted a long time ago. I think it was in the 70s when we tried it first, maybe even earlier. So what it was rats in a cage, and they were giving 2 water bottles, one with water, the other one laced with an opioid. And all the rats tried both, and then they went exclusively to the one with opioids, and they dragged themselves to death. And then there was a smart person in there who said, hold on a minute. This is not a very, can we really rely on the data from this experiment? Shouldn't we make it more, does this really tell us anything about the rats, about the rat brains? In order to draw proper conclusions, maybe we should try to study rats in a more natural environment. Because at that time, we absolutely understood that the environment has an impact on our brains. So what they did was that they took away the fluorescent lights, no people in there anymore, no giants in white coats picking them up in their tails and harassing them. And they got a much bigger place. They got toys. They got access to friends and sex and food. And so they had Rat Paradise. They built Rat Park. And in Rat Park, they also had 2 water bottles, one with water, the other one laced with opioids. All the rats tried both, but they never went back to the one with opioids. And there's an even bigger experiment that did the exact same thing on humans. And that is the Vietnam War. In the Vietnam War, we sent teenagers, basically. I can say they're teenagers now because I'm approaching my 40s soon, and they were 18-year-olds. So to me, they're teenagers. So we sent these young men into a foreign country. They didn't know what Vietnam was. They didn't know what the Vietnamese person was. This was back in the 60s. Like it was very, very terrifying for them. The world is a lot smaller now than it was then. And this was terrifying. They could just as well have been fighting aliens.
Right.
So they went to this distant place to die and to fight. They were far from home. They were hungry. They were scared, and they didn't want to be there. A lot of these young men lost connection with everything. They became depressed, and they started using heroin. They started injecting heroin because it was very prevalent there. There was a lot of heroin there. And this sparked, this created a lot of people in the States were very worried about this, that they were going to have this like a zombie army of heroin addicts coming back to the States. But what they found was that the people who had something to come back to, a context, like a partner, a family, a school, or a job, they could quit heroin cold turkey
Mm.
after having used it for several months, sometimes years, injecting heroin. It was no problem quitting substance abuse if they had connection.
Yeah.
And this really proves that, well, it doesn't prove, but it really suggests that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it is connection.
Yeah.
As long as you have connection, you're pretty much fine.
And I look at it as holistic connection too. It's not just connections with the loved one or connection with your path, your purpose. It's not just connection with nature. It truly is all of those ingredients, not certainly at exactly the same dose,
Hmm.
but I think it is important to look at your life holistically, because clearly if like one area is really lopsided and suffering and you're not feeling nourished, connected, fulfilled, on point, then it does drag the rest of the unit down,
Hmm.
and so to me, I think it's so important I'm a lot older than you, and I think it's important for people to not wait till they're having your midlife crisis to start waking up, to realize like you can't keep kicking the can down the road in this one area and neglect it and thinking that you're just doing okay because this over here is doing okay. Like your life is a system, it's a holistic system that is inextricably interconnected, and you can't, um, everything touches each other. They all, all the parts of the system touch each other. And so, um, that's to me a very important, painful lesson that I had to learn the hard way, which is fine. I got the lesson, thank God. But it's one of those things that it really truly is like, I'm writing a book called Snap Goes the Mommy. And I'm also writing Bitcoin for Peace. Why am I writing 2 books? Because I'm a psychopath. That's why. Um, but they're 2 totally different things. But I talk about like filling your soul hole. It's like you feel this emptiness inside, and I say, that's that itch, right? And so it's like you've got your 5 Ds, your diamonds, drugs, donuts, digital, and dicks. And those are things that people try to consume in excess to make up for whatever that emptiness or that lack of connection, that lack of fulfillment is in one of these areas. And it's like it will never fill it up because it's not the same size, it's just like you're having 2 holes, it leaks out, and then it causes negative impact on your life and your body, obviously, and your mind. So I think it's important to have awareness around what are we doing. Are we consuming too much social media because we're trying to check out? Are we consuming too much sugar or junk food? Are we consuming negative people? Whatever our consumption model is, it's like, is this serving spirit, God, universe, cosmos, whatever you call it? But it's like when you have that connection with yourself and this infinite uh, creation, and knowing that you are part of it, just like you said, we're your nature, like then you can feel like, wow, this stuff is not healthy. This isn't serving me. This isn't serving my mission, my purpose, why I'm here. So it is easier to say goodbye to them, and change your behavior because you are connected to this higher truth that is love, that is, I say God, but I don't know, you can call it Fred, I don't care. uh, you know whatever people call it. um, I've heard you use the word cosmos a few times. Do you say cosmos in place of universe, God? Like what's your thoughts on all the letters that people put in a row to call this great mystery?
I don't back down from using the word God, but I use it differently than a lot of other people do.
Mm-hmm.
When I say the cosmos, I literally mean the cosmos. I mean all of existence. And realizing that, I mean, it sounds trite, it sounds trivial, but I mean, we are the universe.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, there's what else would we be?
Exactly.
So, but I also use the word God. Like I've been an atheist all my life, but I've s- I've seen some things that have changed my view on God, and I also have philosophical argument about how we could define God differently. So when people ask you if you believe in God or something like that, it's you should always ask them for a definition, because there
Mm-hmm.
is no ubiquitous definition, and for that reason, it's very hard to know what you are um, taking a stance on. So one of the definitions of God that I have is a very techno-philosophical one, which is which has to do with the simulation theory.
Mm-hmm.
So if we, as a technological civilization, can create ancestor simulations like we already do with the video games like Assassin's Creed and these games, they are ancestor simulations.
Hmm.
And if we can imbue these sims with not just intelligence but proper consciousness, once we understand what consciousness is,
Mm.
whether that is like a universal field in the universe that we just need a sufficiently complex enough structure to filter and receive, or whether it's a bottom up process that is entirely biological or silicon based. Whenever we can grasp what makes consciousness and we can give it to these beings, then we have created life in the digital world.
Hmm.
And they will eventually probably go on to build their own ancestor simulations in their own games, and they will create the next level of reality. So that means that reality is fractal. And if we can do that, that should lead to a spiritual awakening where we realize that if we can do it, we are probably not the first. That means that we probably have creators. We are probably in a simulations ourselves.
Yeah, I love this.
And that would mean that we have gods. They would be our creators. And if we are the gods to the Assassin's Creed people, if we can give them consciousness. We are their gods. You are their god. I am their god.
Wow.
And if we can create beings, then there's an incredibly small chance that we are the first in this endless chain, this
Mm-hmm.
fractal nature of reality. So, I mean, this the simulation hypothesis is by Nick Bostrom, a Swedish philosopher working at Harvard. And the simulation hypothesis, it's incredibly difficult to argue against if you read the core tenets of that paper. So wouldn't have to go deeper into that, but it's a fascinating paper, and it's very, very difficult to argue against that we are not in a simulation. So that is one definition of God that I find very interesting, but it's not really what people refer to when they say God. So for that, like what people actually mean when they say God, if you have a psychedelic breakthrough, you can experience that your entire being, your entire soul, like your body dissolves, your name disappears, your memories disappears, and you are just pure consciousness. And your pure consciousness is catapulted into the center of the cosmos and merges with the one big giant consciousness, and that is source. And when you are in that place, you can feel that it's a very familiar place. You feel that this is where I come from and this is where I'm going back once I'm
Mm-hmm.
done with this human experience. And being in the presence of that thing, whatever that is, I have no better word than God for that.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
magic.
as and when you come back from that experience, one of the most important thing that I realized is that this human experience is a very spiritual experience, and the most spiritual thing we can do as human beings is to be fully present in this human experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you see? Let me see. Is it over here? Here. Be here now. Have you read this book by Ram Dass?
I have not read Ram Dass. I have consumed quite a bit on YouTube, but I have not actually read his book. No,
Dude, oh my God. Yeah, hold on.
it's
You got to get this book.
I.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's on my list. It's on my psychedelic.
This is my gateway to, uh, and it's such a cool book because he wrote it with all this crazy
Oh
manuscript.
wow,
I
that's
know
amazing.
it's insane. This is,
Looks
uh,
like a quick read as well.
it's the white pages are like, this is recipe books on meditation and stuff at the back. The beginning's just a tiny bit of
Mm,
his history and his story, but like just all of these things are so, I
wow.
swear, when I was 19, um this book fell off the shelf of a library. I was at the library visiting my mom in Arizona, and I love purple. So I was like, ooh, purple book in the self-help spiritual section. Yay. And then I saw it. I was just like, oh, cool. It's weird. And completely changed my life, just his whole journey through, being a Harvard, psychiatrist and doctor and everything. And then discovering psychedelics with Timothy Leary and everything. And I'm just like,
Mm.
whoa. Um, but really the act of being present, is really the job of us as humans, because we are our monkey minds are in the past or the future, and it's like those are false, those aren't even real, they're just constructs, and so
Yeah.
this is it, right here, right now, be here now, and the more
It's an
that you
incredible gift that we have. We have this incredible power to. We have a time machine in our brains. Like we are
Mhm.
the only species that we know that have a time machine in uh, wherever we go. We bring our brains with us, and our brain is a time machine.
Yeah.
We can remember the past, and we can create scenarios in the past. We can think about the future, and we can create scenarios in the future. And that is a form of that is a mental time machine, and it's an incredibly powerful tool that also comes with great responsibility.
Mhm.
It is a difficult tool to manage, and we are not spiritually enlightened enough to carry around this time machine in our brains. But I think we would be if we hadn't ostracized these.
I think it's definitely, I don't know about you, but like, uh, doing psychedelics, I've been doing psychedelics for almost 40 years. So, uh, so it's been a minute. Um, you know, I feel like they have made me who I am 100%, but it's not something that I do often. I do
Mm,
them with
mm,
intentionality, and there was
yes.
times, certainly when I was DJing and being a crazy person,
Mm.
um, I did them a bit more, but I'm a mom now. I'm a single mom, and so it's a lot more intentional. But like, I can't imagine who I would be without this
No,
just each
that goes for
step.
all of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say that that goes for all of humanity.
yeah,
Like we had this kind of interesting short discussion in my Bitcoin and psychedelics Telegram group the other
I need
day.
to be in your Bitcoin and psychedelics Telegram group.
Yes,
Sign me up.
you're definitely going to be in it. It's a quite kind of small group, but
It's
it's
okay.
very we're not even 50 people,
Yeah,
and it's a I love it. I just love it. I love the people there. It's
yeah,
such a warm place to hang out. It's the first when I really have an urge to check my social media. That group has a special place in my heart. It's not just that's not checking in social media. That's checking in on my people.
yeah. Your tribe for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It.
I just love it. It's I'm so proud to have made this group, and it's growing organically, and it's I just love it.
Oh
I love it.
gosh, I love it too.
So yeah, yeah, of course you're going to be in it. So someone posted an image in 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 our group the other day, and it was an AI generated image. I think it went kind of viral on X the other day as well. It was this image where someone had prompted the AI to give them a very normal looking image, no further prompting, just give me a normal image, and then it gave them an image, and then they said make it more normal, and just kept pushing it. And generated eventually was this just a street with cars and houses, but it had this like really psychedelic vibe to it.
Interesting.
And yeah, and that was very interesting. And this was the observation of the person who posted it. And I thought then that, well, AI is humanity's mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Having been trained on the collective uh, corpus of human knowledge of modern man, and so humanity is shaped. Humanity is shaped by psychedelics through our history.
Yeah.
So looking deep enough into the mirror that is AI, it should reveal something we'd associate with a psychedelic experience. So when you push a GPT or an AI far enough, deep enough, you're eventually going to find something psychedelic, because AI is us. AI is us, and we are a psychedelic species. So I just find it fascinating that it seems to be in there as well, in the same sense that it is in us.
I think that's so interesting. I know I play with Midjourney a lot. I love Midjourney, and I'm still kind of learning the other ones, but I'm always putting in psychedelic as one of the words because I want to see what it thinks, and sometimes I'll be like, make me a DMT forest or a LSD earth, and so it's like fun to see what it thinks
Mm,
that
mm.
is, and obviously I'm curious. I want to see what the AIs are going to do when we're actually allowed to be not censored with the words that we choose. Like, I want
Yeah,
to see it like make
yeah.
sexy art and do stuff that's not limited. Like,
Mm,
oh, you're not allowed to use that word. And I'm like,
mm.
okay,
Yeah, yeah. There's a
grandma.
lot of there are a lot of filters on AI. But imagine the people who are creating these AIs; they have access to the unfiltered versions, and I envy them.
I know it would be interesting. Like, I would like to see just what's out there, what other things can't, because just some of the artwork that gets spit out from these things, I'm like, my mind's eye has never seen that ever. Like, I've never
Mm,
dreamed up these images, and it's just like, wow, what else, what other images or imagination is out there that is unharnessed, like let it be free. And so I one day maybe we'll have that. I mean, I get wanting to have some guardrails and protections on there for sure, but I'm also, it's like, come on, just a little
yeah,
bit.
we're navigating these this new territory. We don't know how these tools could be used for evil, for bad, to harm, because
Yeah.
they are powerful tools, and we are gonna have to find a way to incorporate them into society and we're gonna have to democratize them very well,
Yeah.
and hopefully find a way to, like we do with all technologies that we ever have created, like they're gonna bring more good than bad eventually, but the more, like the better the tools are that we invent, the more potential for harm they also have. So I mean, it is a real concern, and the best we can do right now is probably just to have filters on them. I don't know what else we could do, really.
I agree. I think it's okay to have them for now. And I think, I look at us and our hearts as humans, right? And it's like, sure, we can go put the little regulator on the AI or whatever it is so that, we're safe to some degree. However, I would love for us to continue to evolve from within so that we're not out there becoming people who would want to abuse or misuse the
Mm,
technologies. And so, as much as we're build fast, 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 like, I want to see the internal building match the speed, the intention of the internal building. It's not, it's nature. It doesn't take, it's not overnight where we get to, evolve our consciousness into becoming these, uh, higher level operating beings. We're still humans. We're animals. We're stupid. We have fear. We operate from back here. So it's like, we want to keep training ourselves to operate from here as much as,
mm,
to me, as much as possible. I think that's one of my goals is, before I die, I want to hopefully leave the world a little more loving and be more loving that I found it, and create a better world for our kids and all these other generations that will come after. So, yeah, I could talk to you for 10,000 hours on this. So we could, we have to
Yeah,
do some
yeah,
more
yeah.
episodes.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, there are a lot of topics that we haven't touched on, I think.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's do some
yeah.
panels too. Like I was just thinking, even before you mentioned your Telegram group, I was like, oh, we got to get Tomer and some of my our other
Mm,
Journey and Eric Kaysen and some other guys.
mm.
Maybe we'll do some panels and talk about consciousness and Bitcoin and psychedelics and love and peace and all that stuff. What are you doing on New Year's Eve? Maybe we'll do a New Year. I was just thinking I want to host a New Year's Eve Spaces. Maybe.
New Year's Eve, I am on a bus from Stockholm back here.
Cool. What are you doing in Stockholm?
That's where I have my parents and my siblings and
Oh,
my
cool.
friends.
Okay.
I am from Stockholm originally, but now I'm in this small town.
Cool.
Moved a few years back, but just going back to see my folks.
Nice. Well, maybe I might do a New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day thing. I don't know. It'll be fun to get everybody together and talk about what are our dreams for the next year and what did we learn this last year, la, 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 all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love doing that. Okay. Thanks for, I know we've gone over time a lot. So thank you for sharing all this time with me. I really appreciate it, Ioni.
I appreciate it too, Valerie.
Yeah.
I always have a blast talking with you.
I know it's fun, right? Like it's so easy to go in and it's like dancing with all this fun energy and thoughts and stuff. So I'm excited to know you and get to know you some more. Tell if you were to, if somebody was on the fence like you, right? So let's say we've got a 31-year-old listening to this episode who is not a Bitcoiner and has not delved into a psychedelic. What would you say to that person who's, curious but hasn't taken the leap yet?
I wouldn't say anything. I would listen to them.
But someone who's listening to this episode that you can't hear. So
Mm,
if they're out there, what might you say to that person? I love your answer. First of all, that was a great answer, but I'm going to push you a little further.
sure. Well, say if you are curious about, I mean, if you listened this far into the episode, you're either a psychonaut or a Bitcoiner or very curious about either of those. And if you are contemplating uh, taking the leap into a psychedelic experience, you should define your purpose.
Mhm.
And it may be just exploratory. I mean, every purpose is fine,
Mhm.
but you should define it. And what I think you should do is like it's the same thing with Bitcoin. You shouldn't maybe throw your dirty fiat money at it for the first thing you do. You should study it. You should study it until you feel that this is for you, because psychedelics are not for everybody,
Right.
and we should respect them very highly because they're incredibly potent substances. However, that said, as a human being, you are probably going to realize that you have been deprived of something that is innate to the human experience. That you would probably see that it's difficult to make the most of the human experience and to become a complete human being without having these spiritual experiences. And I think that if you are not going to be monk meditating for 40 years straight, you are probably going to need these substances to get to that place,
Yeah.
to see what lies beyond, to see that there's more to the human emotional spectrum, that there's more to than physical reality as we think of it, that there's more to life. I think life without a psychedelic experience is a life not fully lived.
I love it. Oh, that's a bow right at the end of that. Oh my gosh, that's so good. It is. I agree completely. It's kind of like getting a box of crayons and you only have a couple colors instead of getting the whole box of crayons with all the colors to play with. I think of it like that.
Honestly, it's kind of like having a box of crayons with just black, white, and gray.
Oh God, yeah. That's not a rain. Obviously a rainbow girl, so give me all the colors.
There is a reason why psychedelic um, art is very colorful.
Yeah, it is. And well, and it's like we do. It's not that you're constantly like
It's not just that it like it happens. It changes your what you see, like how you perceive sight.
it is.
That obviously changes a lot.
Yeah,
But it's the fact that psychedelic art is very colorful goes deeper than that. It's a symbol for what how colorful life becomes. It's
yeah,
not just the visual aspects of it.
yeah. It's amazing. It is. It's a multi-sensory uh, awakening, I think, and it's really, really powerful. And it's a never-ending journey until you die. There's
Yeah.
no like, yay, I did it, and I'm got my PhD in psychedelics. Woohoo! I'm graduate.
Mhm.
It's like, no, you're just constantly in, you know, exploration and unfolding mode. And so
Yeah.
I think that's super important for people to get. It's not just, don't ever expect like, yay, I did this one time or three times and now I've got all the answers to the universe or whatever. It's like it opens up more questions sometimes than the
Oh,
answers,
always. Yes.
and I think that's really
It's a
neat.
lifelong relationship with the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as you maintain that very important relationship with these teachers and they don't become crutches,
Right, exactly.
that is very important. But they will tell you when you are using them for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. And really listening and tuning into that truth,
Yes.
and I think that's something for all of us to remember because it's easy to tune into the noise and think that that's actually signal. And it's like, no, the signal is a little deeper and softer. And uh, your nervous system sits a certain way when you hear truth versus the static, And so I meditate every day and I love sitting and being, not everybody can sit. Uh, but I think it's important to develop your own level of practice to start tuning into signal versus noise and what is outside societal programming and what is actually your own divine truth in that channel. So it takes a lifetime or many probably, who knows, to get to that you know level. So I'm a student first always. But hey, so check this out. So people can go to uh where is it? Come here. No, here we go. To Consensus Network and go get your book, Abundance Through Scarcity.
Yeah, yeah. Go to bitcoinbook.shop
Okay,
and get my book Abundance.
bitcoinbook.shop.
Yeah, yeah. It's also on Amazon, but it's cheaper on bitcoinbook.shop. And why not buy it from there? Because there you can buy it for sats as well.
It's great. And there's a bunch of other books like from Bitcoiners on
Yeah,
this from Consensus Network. So these
yeah,
guys are awesome. I
yeah.
got to get
Content
this book.
is
So
awesome.
uh,
Yeah,
I'm excited. Maybe I'll
please
pick
do.
it up.
Let me sign it for you in Madeira.
Oh my God, I can't wait. That's going to be such
Yeah,
a great
yeah.
jam. Okay. So people can go to bitcoinbook.shop and then they can also go to, hold on, I got to get this other, I'm still learning Riverside here. I want them to go follow you at your YouTube channel.
Oh,
Uh,
please, yes. Do. I'm working on a video right now
you are?
about the Lightning Network.
Oh, cool. Okay. That's going to
Because
be,
in El Salvador, I just completely fell in love with the Lightning Network. I am so grateful to have had that experience to get to live basically on a personal Bitcoin standard using Lightning in society on a daily basis for 3 weeks straight.
that's
It's an
so
amazing
cool. I can't wait
experience.
to see this video. I know it's like I don't know, I called it hope in action, like down in El Salvador. It's not just a bunch of talk. It's like in action. It's hope in
Yeah, it's
action.
for yeah, like they're actually demonstrating that this is superior money
Yeah,
and it changes society in a very fundamental way.
it does. And I think just being around the positivity of people. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not Disneyland or something where it's, we have some illusions that everything is all of a sudden fixed and perfect, but there is that when you have hope in your life and you have something to look forward to and you feel safe again after all of those years of not feeling safe for these folks, I mean, what a burden, what a weight. It's like taking off a big giant wet cloak of heaviness, you know? And so I felt such a good feeling there too. So I can't wait to see your video and see what you come up with from that. So, all right. So is the best way for everybody to find you on X or Twitter or YouTube? Where should everybody go?
On X, it would be at Ioni Appelberg, IONIAPPELBERG, and on YouTube it's the same, just my name, Ioni Appelberg.
Awesome. Yeah, well, make sure you guys go follow Ioni, and I can't wait to see what you're building with the videos, and I can't wait to see you in Portugal. Woohoo! Yay, Madeira. That's going to be oh my God.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I got to start getting I don't know. I got to put my set together. I mean, I don't ever put a set together, but I have to start thinking about what time we're going to do stuff and how to organize that first night. So that's going to be really fun. Yeah. Anybody who's not going, go to I think it's Bitcoin Atlantis.
Yeah.
It's Bitcoin Atlantis, not Atlantis Bitcoin, bitcoinatlantis.com. It's going to be just one hell of a lineup. We're going to have a good time. So, yeah. All right, my friend. I'm so glad that we got to spend this time together. I'm sure we'll do some more episodes here, and
I would
who
love
knows?
to.
Maybe we'll see each other on New Year's Day I'll organize something for everybody.
Yeah, sure. I'm down with that.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, peace, love, and warm aloha, everybody. We'll tune into y'all next time, and thanks for tuning into Bitcoin for Peace. Woohoo! Thanks, Ioni. All right, I'm stopping it. Yeah.